that please, Elder, can you help me? I really want to have the wellness there and have the wellness together. I want to really do better. Is there anything you can do to help me? And the elder said, well, yes, there is. I can make a potion to help you with that. But if I'm going to make a potion, I will need a whisper from a living. And the woman said, oh, wow, that sounds terrible. Maybe I'll get eaten. Like, is there any other way? Is there anything else that we do? And the elder said, no, it must be a whisper among the mind. And so the woman said, okay, left and thought about it, and said, I really want this. I'm gonna give it a shot. And he knew that there was a place out in the wild away from the building where there was a lion in place. And he thought and came up with a plan. And on the first night of this plan, she went out and had a handful of some meat that she had, and she threw it at the lion and ran away. Right? And of course, not at the lion, but at the lion's dead, right? Just in that direction. Ran away. And the next night, she did the same thing, and then she started slowly, not going quite as far, right? Coming closer and closer back towards the village, going 9/10 of the way, and then 8/10 of the way. Slowly, even the lion was trying to get the food that she needed. Until finally, she was just bringing the meat out and putting it right outside her house on the edge of the village. And then one night, when the lion and the lion got to know each other a little bit, she went up and gently stroked his mane and pulled one whisper for the lion's mane. And this took a long time, right? It took like 2-3 months. This was a lot of work, but she was committed. She got the whisper from the lion. So the next day, she gets up, she goes to the elders' hut outside the village, and says, I finally did it. I got the whisper from the living lion. I'm ready for you to make my potion. She hands the whisper over, and the elder takes the whisper and throws it into the fire. And she's like, what did you do? Why did you just burn that whisper up? I spent a long time. It was a lot of work trying to get it, and I risked my life. Why did you do that? And the elder said, if you bring as much care and attention to your relationship with your new child as you did to getting this whisper from the lion, then your relationship will be just fine. And so she did, and it worked out, right? That she got there, she understood the lesson. And there was sort of the basic lesson about the importance of care and doing this. But the thing I want to lift up for us this morning, as we talk about what it means to have courage, is that when I think about this story, sometimes when there's things that are hard to do that are in front of us that feel scary, we avoid doing them. And we find other ways to try and do it, or we don't do it at all. And there's part of me that wonders, yes, maybe this woman really did need to learn that lesson from the wise person, right? Maybe she didn't understand that was how to make the connection with her son. But it's also possible that some part of her did know what she needed to do, and that it was scary and vulnerable to face the rejection from the child and still love the child. And so that part of which that maybe all she learned was how to have the courage to do what she needed to do. And, this might sound even a little funny, but I've seen examples of this in my own life and other times, right? If this is true, if this interpretation of the story is right, if she felt more comfortable, it was safer to try and get the whisper from a living lion than it was to be vulnerable in the face of rejection from a child. And it might seem a little extreme, but I've seen two people do some extreme things to avoid being present in their feelings and be present to the tricky situation. So I just offer that up this morning as another way to read this story. Is that maybe the insight isn't so much that she learned what she needed to do, as that the elder helped her find the courage to be able to be present to the fears and anxieties and struggles that her child here in character. Thanks. Great. And since we don't have a microphone for Amy up here, I am going to invite you, all the teachers and all the children, to head on up to the parish because they're going to sing some carols and stuff, right? Fantastic. So let's send you on your way to sing.
several occasions to see the conditions of the people waiting to plead their asylum cases. We saw many unaccompanied minors, and it was chaotic there. And that was in the late 2000s. We know it's gotten worse as U.S. policy has sought to reject, deny, and turn away these people, many of whom are minors, seeking the right to asylum rights. Kids in Need of Defense, or KIND, provides the psychosocial and legal support necessary to help children escape the terrors of their home countries and to find safety and hope in the United States. We invite you to please give generously as we share our plate this month with KIND, an organization that helps protect the basic human rights of refugee and immigrant children in the U.S., many of whom come to escape abuse and persecution. KIND envisions a world where children's rights and well-being are protected as they migrate below in search of safety. For all that we do within these walls and beyond these walls, we thank you for your generous gifts this morning.
First reading this morning is number 688 in your grade hymnal, Hold On to What Is Good, by Nancy Wood. Hold on to what is good, even if it is a handful of earth. Hold on to what you believe, even if it is a tree which stands by itself. Hold on to what you must do, even if it is a long way from here. Hold on to my hand, even when I have gone away from you. Our second reading this morning is an excerpt from A Power Government Cannot Suppress by Howard Zinn. He wrote, "To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, and kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are many, where people have behaved magnificently, This gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending this spinning top of a world in a different direction. And if we do act in however small a way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents, and to live now as we think human beings should live in defiance of all that is bad around us is itself a marvelous victory. Here ends our piece. As we have explored our benediction together, I have asked you all to share your thoughts and feelings. Here is what some of you have had to say about the words, "have courage." It always makes me sit up a little straighter and face whatever is before me with increased determination. Someone else. Remembering from high school Latin class that the root of courage means heart, I am inspired by this line to try to live wholeheartedly. The focus is more on acts of emotional risk rather than on physical feats of daring. Another person. This is both an outward-facing and inward-facing sentiment. Outwardly, we should stand up for what's right. Inwardly, it takes courage to live an authentic life, to show vulnerability, and to let oneself feel the full range of emotions. Another. I have faced times in my life when I needed to borrow courage from my elders, who have already endured and navigated so much. And I like to think there may have been times when others borrowed courage from me. Courage can flourish in a beloved community when we make ourselves known and vulnerable. And then one more. The exhortation, "have courage," is a reminder that moral, emotional, and spiritual effort are necessary to be courageous. Courage comes from the word heart. Like a physical heart, courage implies an abiding inner strength. It can be cultivated through effort and intention like any muscle. However, neither bravery nor courage are the absence of fear. Fear is a signal of danger and can be a helpful alert regarding the degree of bravery or courage required. Courage and bravery mean acknowledging fear and seeking to act anyway. I don't think that anyone would argue that living life as a human requires courage of us at various points. Though we are a Unitarian Universalist congregation, so maybe there's one or two of you who do want to argue, and that's okay. But I'm going to take that point as a given. There are so many challenging things that happen in our lives and in the world. Just to name a few. Those of us who hold marginalized identities have to find the courage to live through systemic oppression on a daily basis. Some of us have to find the courage on a regular basis to go to the food pantry so that there is food on the table for our children. Asking for help or even taking help that is offered, whether at a food pantry or another situation, is often an act of courage. And even just being present and authentic, being truly ourselves, is an act of courage for many of us. It can feel incredibly scary and vulnerable to share our feelings and to be ourselves. Which is one of the reasons we value authenticity and vulnerability so much in other people. It takes real courage to be yourself. Now, I'm sure we could easily brainstorm another 20, 50, maybe even 100 ways that it takes courage to live our lives. You don't need me to tell you that courage is something that we all have to find sometimes. What I want to focus on this morning, then, is where we find that courage. And so I asked some of you yesterday if you could tell me where you find courage. Here's what you had to say. I think that belief in what I'm trying to do or trying to face is part of what gives me courage. Sometimes if the obstacle I'm facing is something I deeply object to, like meanness or prejudice or injustice, I get angry, and my anger heightens my courage in tackling the challenge. Solidarity with other people who face the obstacle and work to make things better, either individually or as a group, also boosts my courage. Another person wrote, feeling connected to others, inspiration from those who've been brave in opposition to injustice or in support of greater kindness and compassion. Confidence that even in my imperfection and failures, there are people in my life who will still hold me in their hearts. Another person wrote, from our benediction is where I get courage. When I need courage, and that happens often, when I know I need to speak up or do something that I'm anxious about, that's when the benediction comes to mind. And that line, have courage, somehow gives me courage. I connect with the courage within that I couldn't feel before. Another person wrote simply, I find courage in knowing that I can try again tomorrow. And finally, I have felt most courageous in my life when, in response to a crisis, I found that I had the guts to act from a place of desperate love. I find courage when I hear about other people acting selflessly or with purpose on behalf of others, especially those who stand up against injustice, cruelty, and abuse. I admire most those who speak from a place of deep compassion and understanding, free of fear and depression. Thank you all for your sharing. And I will add that there are many places where we can find courage. We just heard many of them. There's more. We can find courage both within ourselves and from our connection with or inspiration from others. And they vary, how we find that courage varies and differs for each of us. So you've heard some other people's answers. Now I'm going to ask you, where have you found courage in your past? And where do you find courage when you need it? If you haven't taken the time to think about it before, I encourage you to spend some time thinking about what gives you courage and where you can look for it when you need help finding it. Because during these times when we are feeling scared or anxious or overwhelmed, sometimes it can be hard to know where to turn. So it's helpful to have thought it through and know where to turn when you're struggling. To know that there is a sacred text you can turn to in times of need, or a friend you can call for support, or a community like this one that will hold you and care for you, or an author or poet whose words inspire you. You really want to know where to turn, because it's hard sometimes to know when we're in the midst of the struggle where to look. So you know best what will help you find or tap into the courage when you need it, finding courage when you need it. I want to lift up in particular this morning, though, two particular places we can find courage. First, because we live in a culture that encourages individualism, and because we are part of a faith tradition that sometimes has an individualistic bent, it can be easy when we are feeling afraid and anxious, alone and isolated, to think that we need to figure it out or navigate it by ourselves. And so I offer the reminder this morning, as we heard in the reflections shared, that courage can be found in each other and other people. Remember, you are not alone, even if it may feel like it sometimes. This community, whether today is your first day with us or your 10,000th day with us, this community is here for you. When you need us, we are here. There is courage to be found in knowing that you are not alone. There is courage to be found in the supportive words of someone who cares about you. There is courage to be found in the warmth in their voice and the care and love that is offered. The second place I want to remind us to seek and find courage is in our faith in what Unitarian Universalism offers us. One way our faith offers us courage is through the inspiration offered by the words and deeds of Unitarians, Universalists, and Unitarian Universalists who have come before us. So many of them. There's a whole Wikipedia page. I did look. There's a whole Wikipedia page. You can check that. Famous views. But I'll name two, right? So from Claire Barton, who saw a tremendous need in the world and founded the Red Cross to help people. To James Reeb and Viola Liuzzi, two folks, two Unitarians who stood up for civil rights in the United States at the cost of their lives. Those are just three of the people who have found courage and done really difficult and challenging things. So many of our forebears have faced these kinds of circumstances, found courage, and worked to make a difference in the world. Another way that Unitarian Universalism helps us find courage is in connecting us to that which is greater than ourselves. Whether you call that the interdependent web of existence, or the spirit of life, or love with a capital L, or God, we believe that there is a goodness in the world that offers us hope,
even and especially in the hardest times. One of you wrote that on Sunday mornings you say, have courage to hold on to what is good, which is wonderful. And I'm also suggesting that our faith can help us find and have courage by holding on to what is good. Yes, we have the love of this community that can help us find courage, and we also have the unending love that pervades the universe. And now we've also finally arrived to holding on to what is good, our second line organization in this morning. Here's what some of you all had to say about hold on to what is good. For many years, I allowed negative mental chatter a large place in my thoughts, ruminating about mistakes I'd made, disappointments, and resentments. During the pandemic, I started making the choice to hold on to remembering that actually far more numerous good things in my life. The opportunities I've had, the people who've cared for me, the beautiful small things that are always there if I'm aware of them. I like the idea of holding on to what is good, as for me, this way of thinking requires conscious intention. Another person wrote, to me, this means that we need to practice gratitude. Be grateful for everything we have rather than dwelling on the challenging or bad parts of life. Do not get caught up in grievances and negativity. The key to a meaningful, happy life is to let go of the bad and focus on the good. And then one more. Being outdoors, in woods, fields, mountains, water, brings me reliably to the fundamental goodness of being alive. This is not dependent on good news or happiness in relations. It's a state of feeling connected to all living and content death. Conscious beings. That and gratitude, noting the good, even when the good is tiny. And so I was grateful for all of those responses about what that means to you all. But then I was also wondering, so what is that good? Right? What is the good that you're holding on to? So I asked again, look at that. This is the last set of charts. But I asked, what is the good in life that you're holding on to? Here are some of your answers. Love of family. Friends, and the blessing of a grandchild in my life. A sense of belonging to a community of people I respect. A place that will honestly and openly challenge me to live by a set of values and principles I believe in. A belief that people all over the world are trying to find their own way to work toward the same. And always feeling I'm just a small part of the all of life. Another person shared, so many things are good. First parish in my life, a spiritual home, friends, family, acceptance of myself, where I've been, where I am now. My values, a place to live, a job to sustain me. Nature in all seasons. Kindness, resolve, children, music. All of my senses are intact and functioning. Coffee, poems. I could go on and on. What is good in the world? As Mr. Rogers said, the helpers. There are always helpers. And then one last. What is good in the world? Crisp apples, quiet afternoons, beautiful pottery, children playing, sleeping cats, my wife's chicken pot pie, my son's laughter, sunsets, the smells of summer meadow and ocean air, heavy snow falling at night, dreamless, restful sleep, acts of kindness and generosity, a stranger's smile, the procession of the equinoxes, holding the baby, I can go on and on. All of your sharing about holding on to what is good is so beautiful. I really just have one more thing I want to add about gratitude, which is that gratitude, in my experience, is not just an intention or a one-time choice. It's not something that you can just say, oh, I'm going to start being grateful now. It's a practice. A friend of mine shared with me a story of hers from a time when she was multiple. Anyway, one divorce.
the story of her divorce. And she was feeling sad and frustrated and lonely and unhappy and resentful, right? And seeing all of these things, the reminders of her ex, of things that just made her unhappy. And she said, I've got to do something to change this. And she decided she wanted to engage the practice of gratitude. And so she got a gratitude journal, as some folks do, and she started writing things down. And she did, and this is hard, I admire her, because it's hard for me to do stuff like this every day. She did it every day. And what she found was, and that's half the battle, right? It's just sticking to it and doing it every day. But what she found was that she had to not make things up, but find things to be grateful for at first, right? And some of it was silly, like, oh, the toilet seat's down all the time. and there's no socks. All the socks are in the hamper. There are no socks on the floor, right? They were just turning the resentments around. She was working, right? Working hard to find the gratitude at first. But what she discovered over time, as she kept at this practice, was that she didn't have to work so hard after a few weeks, after a month. That she started noticing the things to be grateful for. And instead of when she went down, really having to work to find things to write in her gratitude journal, that she found she had an abundance of things to write in her gratitude journal. And it wasn't that her life had changed, what she was doing so drastically in that month. It was that she had been paying attention every day, practicing gratitude is what had changed. And so that's what I want to lift up for us this morning about gratitude. But it's not just an intention or a one-time choice. It's a practice. And that's so it's true for everybody, right? So maybe there's some of us who aren't practicing gratitude as much in our lives, and we really believe you're practicing to feel it. Even those folks who are those who are really good at practicing gratitude, it's something you have to keep up, because as musicians know, if you don't practice playing your instrument, whatever it is, you get rusty, right? You can fall out of practice. And so it's really important and helpful can be for us to try and practice gratitude in our lives. Friends, the world is a challenging place. Our lives are challenging to live. We're still recovering from living through a pandemic that's still going on. On so many different levels, in so many different ways. Life can be hard. And so, as our benediction calls us, so too I call us now. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Have courage by holding on to what is good.
each week we celebrate the beauty and the wonder of community. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. We celebrate together the joys and sorrows, the trials and tribulations that we face as human beings, because we know that in our sharing we are not alone. Today I share these milestones. Beloved former First Parish member Kay Harvey died earlier this fall, and all First Parish members and friends are invited to the Memory Sharing Circle held in the parlor on Thursday, December 7th at 2:30 p.m. Jeff Lloyd needs a kidney and all the love and support of our community to navigate this new challenge. We are sharing a link to the National Kidney Registration page in the hope of helping him find a match. Please keep Jeff in your thoughts and prayers and consider becoming a donor candidate if you are eligible. Gertrude Richards Russell, mother of Abby Russell Pryor, died peacefully at home on November 18th with Isaac, her husband of 67 years, holding her hand. Abby and Mark were also present, and their children Kaylee and Elizabeth joined them soon after to mourn and honor this remarkable woman. After a multi-year struggle with a host of different health challenges, Erica Dresden, mother of Dan Dresden, passed away on Saturday, November 25th at the age of 77. Her two sons and husband of 54 years were at her side when she slipped away peacefully. She will be dearly missed. We offer loving care to First Parish members Dan, Emily, and her grandchildren, Grace, Lily, and Izzy. We offer condolences to the family and friends of Lynn Palmer, Shayla, who passed away suddenly. Her funeral service was held at First Parish this past Thursday. We hold all of these in our hearts, and I invite you now to call out the names of those whom you are holding in your hearts today. We offer these requests aloud. You know, sometimes it's hard to call those names, to hold those people in our hearts in this space. And so I will offer just another moment for those who would like to share. We acknowledge and hold all these in our hearts, and all those who have yet to find a community in which to share their joys and sorrows. May all find peace and love. I invite you now to pray with me. These are the words of Virginia P. Knowles. She writes, Spirit of the creative good, be with us when we are afraid. Grant us the courage to do what we have to do. Grant us the peace that passes understanding. When we fail to find courage or peace, may we find compassion for our siblings who also fail. May we sometimes win the prizes that we fight for, and may we then know both pride and compassion. May we be open to the candor of old age and the freshness of childhood. May we receive good memories. May we give good memories. May we have faith, O God. Be merciful to us and help us be merciful to one another and to ourselves. I invite you now into silence.
You actually need one. Friends, so often when you come to church, maybe not so often, but often enough, we come and we talk about the hard things, we talk about the things we need to work on, we talk about the injustices in the world, and we lift those things up in our wrestling. This morning, we celebrate what is good. We hold on to what is good. We remind ourselves of the places where we find courage, including right here in our time. Because that is also important spiritual work. To rest in those places, to be held in that place, and to know that we both give love and receive love, and are. Please rise in body or spirit as we join in singing our closing hymn, number 57, All Beautiful and Lovely. Go and be blessed, and be a blessing. Amen.